Thank you. There we are, Lord Pork Chop. Exactly. Basically, most sugar free products allegedly contain aspartame, which causes brain lesions, which is a nice way of saying bleeding of the brain, right? And spots on the brain. It's something you don't want, right? And for what? Because it's cheaper than using, or is it that? Is it even that? I don't know. I don't want to go down a conspiracy rabbit hole, but at best, it's a cheaper replacement for a better quality sugar. At best. At worst, it's something far more nefarious. You go ahead and pontificate on your own. I'm not trying to say what's what. I'm just saying, at best, it's corporate greed run amok, which, you know, goes right back to what Kennedy was saying. So I'm a big fan. Kennedy 2024, it's time to abandon the two party system. They are both broken beyond repair, right? My whole life, the Republican Party was the party of big business, of cutting social benefits, right? Always saying, like, oh, we can't afford the social benefits, but they could always afford war. They would always give a tax break to a corporation. So, wait a minute. So, wait a minute. If you can't afford the social benefits, and you cut social benefits to save money, why would you then give a tax break to corporations that's either that equivalent or exceeds that dollar amount, right? So it's all, the shell game of tomfoolery. We're being fleeced by corporate puppets who have one goal: to make their masters more money, right? They're working for the donor class. Um, so I'm loving that we're seeing this trend go around of cancel celebrities, right? Just like block them on social media, block them, right? And I think that's fantastic, right? Because the Kardashians don't have anything to offer society except for escape, like a crab in a pot of boiling water. You can watch the Kardashians and keep yourself numbed out and distracted until the world's burning around you, or you can open your eyes and realize that you're being fleeced, you're being manipulated, you're being coerced, right? You're being kept in a certain amount, in a certain state of fear, a certain amount of agitation to keep you uneasy, to keep you easily irritable, keep you on the edge. You're being squeezed financially so that you have less options. How many people do you know could take 2 weeks off and go to Washington, D.C. and protest, or go meet with Congress people and tell them the plight of your community? How many people do you know that go to city council meetings and demand that the city council actually do what the people in that city want instead of corporations, instead of bending at the behest of these behemoths? So I guess I'll keep going here with the Kennedy policies. So another of his policies is that people should be able to afford a good life if they work full time, and I could not agree more. Right, like he's talking about a home ownership program. He's talking about 3% government backed first time home buyer loans. I've been talking about this for 20 years. It would be so easy. Like if we can loan, Ukraine, if we can give Ukraine $140 billion, we could put 200 billion into a 3%. No, how about this? With good credit and work history, a no money down loan at 3% for first time home buyers, because we want Americans to become home buyers. Because guess what? That's the most reliable way of building wealth, and especially intergenerational wealth. And when people are wealthier, they're going to be happier. They could do more things. They have more options. They have more freedom and options ultimately, right? You can go to whatever school you want. You can go to whatever doctor you want. Odds are you're going to live longer. You're going to have better medical care. You're going to eat better. You're going to take vacations, which help you de stress, all of these things, right? So if we did not bend over for behemoth corporations, and if we fought for the working man, we could make these things happen. It's just a matter of shifting perspective and priority. So here we go. Kennedy, people who work hard should be able to afford a good life. This or that is the guiding principle of Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s economic policy. It's hard to believe that once upon a time, a blue collar worker with a high school education could support a family, take vacations, and even save for retirement. Technology has made our productivity many times higher. So why is life poorer, not richer, than in the 1960s? Why do people just accept that life will get slowly worse? Kennedy does not accept it. We can restore the American middle class by reversing the missteps of the last 50 years. A massive military machine has nearly bankrupted this country. Rampant corruption in Washington has put corporations in charge, enriching the wealthiest as the working people have dropped out of the middle class. Official unemployment is low, but most of the new jobs are in the low pay service sector. Wealth inequality in the country is at a 100-year high. More than 60% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck with no savings for an emergency. Take home pay after inflation and taxes has fallen 9% since Biden took office. Under the Biden administration, the price of an average home has risen from $250,000 to around $400,000, and mortgage rates have more than doubled. Rents have followed the trend, putting more and more people on the edge of catastrophe. But we can turn it around. Being able to afford a decent life doesn't mean working more hours. It means higher pay and lower bills. Here is what Kennedy will do to make it a reality. Raise the minimum wage to $15, which is the equivalent to its 1967 level. Wow. Number 2, prosecute union busting corporations so that labor can organize and negotiate fair wages. Hell yeah. Number 3, expand free childcare to millions of families with programs like that pioneered by the state of New Mexico. That's fantastic. I've been saying that for a decade plus too. You need free childcare. Childcare is ridiculously expensive, and you're not getting a skilled person. You should be getting people who are going through a teacher credentialing program should be able to get volunteer hours by being daycare workers, and daycare should be an extension of school. So you're not just sitting there hanging out and doing fun stuff, you're learning. Drop housing, number 4, drop housing costs by $1,000 per family and make home ownership affordable by backing 3% home mortgages with tax-free bonds. That's huge. Cut energy prices by restricting natural gas exports. Support, number 6, support small businesses by redirecting regulatory scrutiny onto large corporations, right? Like, small businesses are put under the microscope. Why? Because large businesses want them put out of business so they can swoop them up at pennies on the dollar when they go under. That's what happened during COVID, right? Large corporations like Home Depot and other things, Walmart, were able to stay open, but small retailers were forced to close. So that's horrible. Let's see, number 7, secure the border and bring illegal immigration to a halt so that undocumented migrants won't undercut wage. Number 8, negotiate trade deals that prevent low-wage countries from competing with American workers in a race to the bottom, which is the result of NAFTA. Thank you very much, Bill Clinton. Number 9, rein in military spending and use the resources to fund infrastructure, healthcare, higher education, childcare, and domestic prosperity. I've been saying this for decades as well. We spend $863 billion on defense annually. That's the money we know about. Then there's a black budget, right? That's the money we know about. We could cut that in half and still be spending more than 100 billion over what China is spending. They're the next biggest military that with the next biggest budget, right? So we could spend double what they're spending. I'm sorry, we could spend 100 billion more than they're spending if we cut our budget in half. More than that, right? So they're spending about 360 billion a year. So we could cut our military spending by 400 billion a year and still be spending a billion more than them and be all good. And then we'd have money for infrastructure, healthcare, higher education, childcare, domestic prosperity, these home loans. We could even do it, like I was saying, a no interest backed, a no deposit down home loan with low interest if you have good credit and job security, good job history. But Kennedy's plan is drop housing costs by 1,000 per family, make home ownership affordable by backing 3% home mortgages with tax-free bonds. All right, moving on to step number 10 of Kennedy's economic proposal. Reverse the chronic disease epidemic that is a $3.7 trillion drag on families and the American economy. Number 11, clean out the corruption in Washington, D.C., which funnels so much of our nation's wealth to giant corporations and billionaires. Number 12, establish addiction healing centers on organic farms across the country. Wow, what a vision, what a visionary. Establish addiction healing centers on organic farms across the country instead of in a disgusting urban city environment. Imagine that. And then we have the national health care to pay for it because it's in the nation's best interest to not be a nation full of drug addicts, right? And we have to stop othering people. These are Americans, right? Most drug addicts do not want to continue on the path that they are on, at least after, a little while of being a drug addict. It's no longer fun. They're not partying. They're a slave to their addiction. And most of them would accept help. There are those that have mental issues, and that's a whole nother topic. We should have a safety net for those people as well. But if we cut the military, like Kennedy's saying, then we have money for all these programs. Let's see. Number 12. Nope, I'm sorry. That was the addiction healing centers. Number 13, make student debt dischargeable in bankruptcy and cut interest rates on student loans to zero. Boom. Right? So I don't know if you guys know this, but student debt doesn't go away when you file bankruptcy. And that's because our governmental officials are corrupt and sided with the student loan companies on this. Betty DeVos was invested in student loan collection, right? And if you cut student loans to zero, then you're telling your people that, hey, we're going to invest in you. And yeah, you got to pay us back the money, but it's not a scheme for us to profit off of you, right? I mean, come on. Do we want to invest in the future of America or not? If you do, well, that means funding college and trade schools and apprenticeship programs, trade schools and apprenticeship programs for people who choose not to go to college. Number 14, cut drug costs by half to bring them in line with other nations. Yeah, a lot of people don't know that. We pay, in some cases, double what other countries pay for the exact same medication. Michael Moore looked into that in his documentary Sicko, and he was pointing out that in Cuba, you can get an asthma inhaler for $1.50, and in the United States, the same brand inhaler is $150. That's criminal, and that's exactly what you get when you leave, corporations in charge of healthcare. Okay, people are always, back to Kennedy here, people always ask, how are we going to pay for this? The answer is simple. First is to end the military adventures and regime change wars like the one in Ukraine. The wars in Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, and Libya already cost us over $8 trillion. That's $90,000 per family of four. That's enough to pay off all medical debt, all credit card debt, provide free childcare, feed every hungry child, repair our infrastructure, and make college tuition free with money left over. That's enough to make Social Security solvent for another 30 years. Second is to end the corruption in Washington, the corporate giveaways, the boondoggles, the bailouts of the too big to fail that leave the little guy at the mercy of the market. Corporations right now are sitting on $8 trillion in cash. Their contribution to tax revenues was 33% in the 1950s. It's 10% today. It's high time they paid their fair share. Trump wants to talk about make America great again. That's why, I mean, if you want to say it was great, right? Like ask a black person when they think America was great. Ask a Native American when they think America was great, right? So it's going to vary greatly. But if you ask a white man when he thinks America was great, it's going to be between 1940 and 1960. And why? It's because that massive tax rate on corporations and the wealthy propelled our country into, economic boom, created a booming middle class, increased the life expectancy and the standard of living of the average American, on and on and on. Funded the development of our freeway systems throughout the country and train systems that used to be fantastic. LA used to have the most advanced rail system in the entire country. And now you would never know that there was ever a train there because you have to drive everywhere. Well, but that was done on purpose in a scandal that you'll never hear about on the mainstream media, where auto manufacturers and tire manufacturers worked together, or was it oil and tire? Anyway, there was a scandal where corporations worked together, told cities that they would repave the streets for free. Then they repaved the streets too thick, so overnight the trains didn't work anymore. The train tracks were useless. Boom, everybody had to, now all those goods had to be delivered by truck instead of by train, instead of just the last couple miles by truck, right? Okay, so Kennedy's wrap-up statement on this segment is, other presidents have tinkered on the edges, but Robert F. Kennedy Jr. will make the deep changes necessary to put the economy on sound footing. The broad prosperity of the Eisenhower and JFK eras can be ours again. It's just a shift of priorities away. I like that, and I believe it. All right, here's another segment, home ownership and the American dream. The dream of home ownership is slipping away for many Americans with high mortgage rates, rising prices, and stagnant income. To make matters worse, venture capital firms and hedge funds are buying up single-family homes by the millions. As home ownership costs rise beyond reach, rents follow them into the stratosphere. Consider these statistics. 1. American home ownership is declining at the highest rate since the Great Depression. 2. We lost more than 1 million homeowners in 2021, more than in the housing crash of 2008, and then another million in 2022. Wow, I didn't know that. Number 3, the median home price has risen from $250,000 in 2019 to $400,000 in 2023. Number 4, mortgage rates have more than doubled since President Biden took office. Number 5, the rise in interest rates combined with skyrocketing housing prices has pushed the average monthly payment for someone buying a home from $1,050 in 2019 to over $2,600 a month. Wow. $2,600 per month. And they say you're not supposed to spend more than a quarter of your income on housing, which is a joke because that was years ago, right? Most people spend half, but wow. So to even have a chance at getting by buying a house, paying $2,600 a month, you got to be making at least twice that to cover all your other bills, right? So that's $5,200 a month. So basically, you got to be a couple, right? What single people are throwing down that kind of money? Number 6, at the same time, take-home pay after inflation and taxes has fallen by 9%. Number 7, at the current pace, by 2030, 60% of single-family homes will be owned by corporations. Wow. Let that sink in, right? What that means is that home ownership is now out of reach for all but the top income bracket. Younger Americans in particular barely dream of ever owning a home. They face a future at the mercy of faceless corporate landlords who will raise rent to the highest level in the market that the market will bear. None of this is inevitable, though. As president, RFK Jr. will enact a series of policies to put home ownership back within the reach of working families. Here's how. Number 1, tax-free 3% government-backed mortgage bonds to bring the mortgage interest rate back to 2019 levels and even lower. It's like having a rich uncle, Uncle Sam, who's willing to co-sign your mortgage because the financing will come from investors. The cost to taxpayers will be minimal. This measure alone will reduce monthly costs for the average home purchase by $1,000. That's huge. So from $2,600 to $1,600, that's much more doable. Number 2, bring derelict land and buildings back online. Many cities have thousands of vacant lots and buildings that have been seized for tax arrears or other reasons. The Kennedy administration will incentivize local governments to bring city-owned land and buildings back onto the market. That's huge, especially in places like, Ohio and a couple other areas around just, in the Rust Belt where they just saw a mass exodus. Number 3, zoning changes. We will encourage municipalities to change zoning laws to allow for ancillary dwelling units, for granny units, on more properties to make housing available, bring families together, and provide homeowners with rental income. More supply means lower prices. Exactly, supply and demand. If there's more houses, then the cost of renting a home goes down, and that's got to happen. Number 4, tax code changes. Small changes to the tax code can make corporate investments in single-family homes uneconomic. For example, we can change business depreciation rules and reform the quote-unquote enterprise zones that have contributed so much to gentrification. Together these changes will restore homeownership to tens of millions of Americans and lower costs for tens of millions more. We will get large corporations out of the single-family home business. Now, here's a short video by Robert F. Kennedy Jr. on how I'll make housing affordable. Here we go.
But housing is probably the most important issue in terms of building wealth in poor communities. If you have a house, you can get a loan and you can build a business. If you don't have a house, you have no access to capital. 2 years ago, the average cost of a house in this country was $215,000. Today, it's $400,000. Why did the price of housing go up? Well, 1, because of the inflation, because we spent $8 trillion on wars and $16 trillion on COVID, which we didn't have. So they print money, which caused the price of everything to go up. More importantly, there's 3 giant corporations: BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard. They also own 89% of the S&P 500. They've now decided to buy every single family home in America. If they stay on the current trajectory, they will own 60% of the homes in this country, single family homes, by 2030. You all probably have heard of people who are about to buy a home and somebody comes in at the last minute with a cash offer and snatches it out of the market.
Right.
And it's usually an LLC with an ambiguous name. But if you trace that up, you'll find it's owned by BlackRock. And because they have a huge bank book, the cost of money and interest in them is tiny, which means they can outcompete your children. Your kids do not have a chance to buy that home because they can't outcompete BlackRock. Let me tell you what I'm going to do. One thing, I'm going to try to change the tax code to make it unprofitable for those companies to compete against your children for housing. Number two, I'm going to make a mortgage available to Americans at 3% interest. And I'm going to do that without raising the debt. And the way I'm going to do it, if you have a rich uncle who will co-sign your mortgage, you can get a very cheap mortgage because the bank is basing the interest rates on his credit score rather than yours. Oh, I'm going to give everybody a rich uncle. I'm going to say Uncle Sam is going to co-sign this new class of mortgages and guarantee them at 3%. That will lower the cost of mortgages by $1,000 a month, and it will allow them to outcompete BlackRock. And I'm going to finance those mortgages by selling tax-free bonds on the open market. It won't be financed with federal tax dollars and contribute to this incredible debt that we have. And those will only be available to first-time home buyers who will live in that community, who will work in that community, starting with teachers, because we need to create housing for teachers to keep the best teachers in our schools. So that's one of the things I'll do. If you like this video and you want to help me become president of the United States, go to Kennedy24.com and donate now.
Wow. Wow, that is huge, man. Oh, gets me fired up and it gets me choked up, man, because our country is in such a sad state. I mean, if you pull back the microscope, this is pretty wild, right? Like the last time our country was doing well was when his uncle was assassinated. Now we've absolutely been on a downhill slide ever since. Now Robert F. Kennedy Jr. comes out of the woodwork offering a solution. Wow. We almost owe it to him for what our government did to his father and his uncle. Anyway, I digress. Here's another video by Bobby Kennedy, and then I'll wrap it there and we'll just talk about this a little bit on stereo. This video is called I'll Help You Buy a Home.
We've all heard stories of 20 and 30-year-old kids who can't afford to buy a house and even can't afford rent and are moving back in with their parents. This isn't happening because young people have suddenly gotten lazy. Monthly mortgage payments for home buyers are up 20% just in the last year, and that's because interest rates have doubled. Meanwhile, the cost of the average home has gone from $250,000 to $400,000 just since 2019. And those higher home prices have also driven up the cost of rent. So now Americans are paying a third of their income for rent. That's the highest ratio since records were kept. So what's happening? Well, what's happening is BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard, these giant corporations which own 88% of the S&P 500, are going into real estate. These investment firms swoop in as soon as a house comes on the market. They outbid prospective home buyers with cash offers. They add that property to their investment portfolio, and then they rent it back to you or your children at the most exorbitant rate that the market can bear. So how can our kids or the typical American homeowner win a bidding war with BlackRock? By 2030, these giant corporations are on track to own 60% of the single-family homes in our country. So BlackRock wants to be everybody's landlord and everybody's neighbor, but I'm not going to let that happen. When I get to the White House, I'm going to restore affordable home ownership to every American, and I'm going to do that without raising the national debt. And here's how I'm going to accomplish that feat. I'm going to create a federal program that backs mortgages at 3% financed by tax-free bonds. These mortgages are going to be available to people only, not corporations. This will drop mortgage payments by more than $1,000 a month for a medium-priced home and allow your children to outcompete BlackRock in the market. So here's how it works. Imagine that you had a rich uncle who was willing to co-sign your mortgage. Well, I'm going to make Uncle Sam that rich uncle. It's not a giveaway, it's a loan guarantee that makes that property affordable to millions of Americans who cannot now afford it. This is just one of the policies that the Kennedy administration will deploy to create millions of new home buying opportunities at less than $1,000 a month. We're also going to change the tax code to get corporations out of the single family home market. And we're going to work with municipalities to get empty lots and derelict homes back into circulation at low prices. As President of the United States, I'm going to create a housing boom in this country the same way that we did it after World War II when we made home ownership affordable for working people. If you like this video and you want to help me become president of the United States, go to Kennedy24.com and donate now.
All right. So there it is, folks. Wow. So I don't know if people on StreamYard, YouTube, etc., can hear the messages that I'm about to play on stereo. This is kind of a test run doing multiple platforms. However, the stereo app. So what I'm going to do right now is, if you cannot hear the messages that I'm about to play, then this will probably won't be interesting for you from here on out. But here we go. I'm going to play a message. So see if you can hear this. We have got a CC from the stereo app, line 2. Well, the reason I'm talking about Kennedy is because I believe in him. You know, what have the Democrats done for the working person? Chuck Schumer went on record to say that the Democrat Party is leaving behind blue collar voters and that they're no longer going after the working class vote. And he said, for every blue collar worker we lose, we'll gain 2 soccer moms, meaning moderate Republicans. And then in another television interview, Obama stated, well, in hindsight, my presidency was moderate Republican. So there you have it. So the Democratic Party's dead beyond repair from inside, which is why Kennedy, a lifelong Democrat, is running as an independent. The Republican Party is and has always been the party of big business, right? They're all about corporate subsidies, cutting taxes, and eliminating social programs for the poor and the working class while expanding the military budget, right? So lying, saying we don't have enough money while they take from the and give to the military industrial complex, some of the richest people in the world. Another message from Cece on the stereo app here. You know what I'm saying? She was, in case you couldn't hear that, she was saying what grinds her gears is that we give other countries money when we can't afford to spend it at home. Amen. I couldn't agree with you more. Cece on the stereo app. That's insane. Multiply that times 10. I can't even do, I'm not a great math guy, but that's over 10 grand a month. That's insane. 10 grand a year. That's absolutely insane. So in 5 to 10 years, that's a down payment on a home, but you're having to piss it away on childcare. There should be government run daycare facilities that are, educational, that are run by teachers who need to get hours for their credential, right? That are going into the profession of teaching, that have taken child psychology classes. We don't want people just doing a for-profit daycare in their home because their husband's at work and they got a nice big house. How do we know these people are decent people? How do we know they've taken any child psychology classes, right? This is insane. We're absolutely letting the dollar, and in specific, the corporation, run every single aspect of our society and decide how we do everything, how our children are taught, the food that we eat, right? Are you kidding me? With the farmland that we have in this country that we're building houses over, I might add. If we kept our fertile farmland, we could have the most, delicious, nutritious, organic food on the planet. But instead, we have a poisonous food supply, and a number of countries, all of Europe, will not accept our imports. Even China will not accept imports of certain foods from the US because they're toxic. Either the way that we raise our meat, which is horrific, it's like the most inhumane, absolute cheapest factory type way that you could do it. And that's why they call it factory farming, because it's like Henry Ford figured out how to make a car the cheapest by having everything on a conveyor belt, and at least, not if not automating, then streamlining every step of the process. So now they've done that with food production, except food is not a car, right? Food is medicine, really. Food's going to keep you good quality, nutritious food is going to keep you out of the hospital. Food tastes good because it's full of nutrients and micronutrients. Why does a homegrown tomato taste like a completely different food than a store-bought tomato? Because of the nutrient level and the sugar level and a number of different things. But they have to pick the store-grown tomato when it's green. It's not even close to ripe. You would never pick that tomato if you were growing it, unless you're going to make fried green tomatoes or something. But yeah, I mean, a tomato is ready when it's soft to the touch, right? But it's not going to transport, right? So what's the answer to that? Local organic farms, so that you could go to a local farmer's market wherever you are and get good quality, organically, regeneratively farmed food. It's not complex. It's a really simple concept. We got a message from Rico on the Stereo app. Coming in hot, Rico. Well, I'm not sure. I haven't heard that, and we're of the opinion here on the show that the vaccine is safe and effective, and the NIH was doing their utmost to protect people and save human life. Rico on line 3, Stereo app. Well, thank you very much, sir. I appreciate the compliment. I am humbled. I always like to hear feedback, if people like, or even if you don't like what I'm doing. I could always use pointers. I'll always listen, whether I agree with you, take what you said into consideration and change what I'm doing or not. That's a whole nother story. But I do listen to all comments, and I appreciate when people tell me they dig what I'm doing, because there is a lot of thought that goes into it. Like, for instance, my background right here, if you can see the video. Why, I spent an hour cleaning up my studio right here just so y'all would have that pretty old background, okay? We have a special guest on line 5. This is no other than Scott O'Neill. That's right, Irish Scott O'Neill, artist. Can find his art on Instagram, and he makes amazing art. We have got Scott O'Neill. Did I say line 5? No, he's on line 4. Here we go, Scott. Yeah. Ha ha ha. He can't help it. He can't help it. It's just it's not a health issue. It's just it's a condition with his vocal cords. Um, so, yep. Anyway, we're gonna go ahead and wrap this one up. I'm gonna do many on this series. I volunteer in complete transparency. I volunteer for the Kennedy 2024 campaign. I don't get paid, and I'm just doing this because I think our country is in dire straits. And as Kennedy was saying, I believe we've been taken over by corporate pirates, really. That if you want to hear my full opinion, I believe that there was a coup in our country in 1963, and the people that took out not only President Kennedy, but also many civil rights leaders and activists, and also his brother, Bobby Kennedy, um, were advocates of the New World Order and were doing the bidding of the military industrial complex. So there's that. That is why I'm doing this. So I hope you won't listen to the idiot box, the lamestream media when they say he's a wingnut. Go look for yourself. Kennedy 2020, Kennedy24.com. And I'll be doing another few podcasts on his various stances, his policies. All right. Thank you very much. This is Dave Smith with And Another Thing with Dave, the podcast on all streaming platforms. Peace out.